the poor and the homeless and such. Now, a question came up about, well, what happened with the neighbors? Where are they at? So we hope to maybe shed some light on that today. Um, but I want to go over a little bit about some stories, some examples of why I believe that heaven exists, and also why a place or a state of being known as purgatory exists. I have an example of that I think is very riveting. And I'm going to shed some thoughts on what I think about hell as well. But um, let's start with heaven. There's a story of some people that I know who, and I don't want to reveal any names, but uh, one of them was at the foot of a bed of a dying person, and the person that was dying was a very spiritual person. And one of the few that probably is going right to heaven, doesn't have to sit down and discuss anything with God. I believe most of us will have to sit down and discuss things with God. But this person, like many saints and such, no, going right there. It's just a straight shot. And this person's soul was so strong that the person who was at the foot of the bed actually felt everything and went along to heaven with the person that died. Actually experienced it for a few minutes before they were told they had to come back. And what makes this story believable for me is it took this person like 5 years to start talking about it, because it was just such an unbelievable case. It wasn't something that, if you make a story up, you're gonna be like, wow, you're going to tell that right away. It's a great story. I got to tell people this. But, it took this person 5 years to come to the grips with everything that happened. And the person talks about how beautiful heaven was and his emotions and what he felt. And it's just an unbelievable story. And what makes the story even more believable is that there was a third person in the room who, at the time of death, was trying to talk to this person that experienced the death, and um, was asking the person if they were all right, and the person was non-responsive. So it pretty much, like, in my mind, gives a lot of credence to the fact that what he's saying is true, because that person was like scared for the person who was at the foot of the bed, because he didn't know they didn't know what happened to this person. So it to me it's a great example of, that heaven does exist, and that, people that have experienced that and have come back, they just tell such phenomenal stories. So in my case, when people talk to me about, you don't want to die, no, I love to live and be here longer and be with my family. But when I hear those stories, it makes me, just, I'm not scared to die, because it sounds like a beautiful place. And hopefully, I may have to answer some questions, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Which brings me to, you know, my story on purgatory, which my wife had met this gentleman one time, and he was basically a mystic, and he became a family friend of ours. He was a phenomenal guy, and he ended up passing away not too long ago. But uh, he sat down with my wife, and was soon after they met, and just he didn't never talked about his the gifts that he had, but he was talking to my wife, and all of a sudden it was almost like my wife said, explained to me that it really wasn't him, it was other people that she knew prior that was coming through and knew of him, and or coming through that knew her, I should say. But one of the people, one of the things that this gentleman told my wife was we needed to have a mass for this gentleman, who my wife or I, we did not know, we only knew of him. Uh, he basically had made his presence known to my wife, through something that we purchased that he once owned. So, you can, a car, a house, land, whatever. It was something. Uh, I don't like, again, want to reveal too much because, to me it's a very private thing. But basically what the mystic had said to my wife was, you need to have a mass for him because he's not quite there yet. He's working hard to get there, which meant heaven. Now, he had been dead for at least, I want to say, 20, 25 years when the mystic told my wife this. So it was very powerful. We did have a mass said for him, by the way. But so he was what Catholics call in purgatory, which is sort of a step between heaven and hell. And, if you think about in life how long it sometimes takes us to get things done, 20, 25 years in purgatory probably isn't that long. But he probably, I'm thinking you sit down with God, and if you're not quite ready, maybe he was always scared to even approach God. I mean, you think about like a book report in high school, a lot of times the teacher's like, well, who wants to go first, and if you're ready, if you're prepared, you like to go first because you can get up there, you can get it done and sit back and relax. And in my life, that's what I'm trying to do right now with my spirituality. I want to be as prepared as possible. So when my time comes, I can sit down, I can feel confident that I can go and talk to St. Peter and to God and Jesus or whoever and say, I'm ready. I accept Jesus as my Savior. I've, I've offered up forgiveness for those that I felt have done me wrong, and I've asked for forgiveness for those that I've done wrong too. I think forgiveness is one of the biggest things that God looks for when you're trying to get into heaven, because as Jesus said on the cross, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I think, and I've talked about forgiveness before, how important I think it is. So, with that in mind, the whole idea of purgatory, I think a lot of people exist in purgatory. And I think that their spirits are around. And the reason for that is God has given them every opportunity to try to get into heaven. I don't believe many of those people are ever condemned to hell. I think some people are in purgatory a very long time, possibly, if need be. So, they've never done anything in their life that was so bad that they would be condemned to hell, because I think God and Jesus are definitely very forgiving, but they don't want to put somebody in heaven that doesn't necessarily want to be there because of free will. I think free will exists for a reason. So, to prepare yourself for heaven, I think is a very important thing while you're here on earth. And that's where I think, when we discuss purgatory, I think that's where the Joneses' neighbors are. I think, maybe, they eventually got to heaven, but they had to sit and think and ask for forgiveness and maybe do some things, reach out, maybe to help some people. Hell, I think, is reserved for the very, very worst among us. And when I say worst, I shouldn't say that, because I think it can be anybody that just simply overly rejects God and Jesus and just has no remorse whatsoever for anything they've ever done. Which, leads me to the fact that, okay, like a criminal, a hardened criminal, say even a murderer, do they get to go to heaven? I don't know. I can't answer that. But I do believe they have an opportunity, because God is very forgiving. And nobody's going to go up and pull a fast one on God. So I do believe if a murderer does ask for forgiveness, has accepted Christ as his Savior, that he does have a shot. And I know some of you are thinking, well, why would I even want to go to heaven if they let murderers in? Well, that's the same kind of excuse I hear when, people say they don't like to go to church because there's too many hypocrites there. I don't go to see people when I go to church. I go to be with God, because God gives me a sense of peace and happiness. And that's the way I feel about heaven. So I'm not worried about who God lets in, as long as I'm hoping I'm part of it. So, that's one thing when when it gets me a little angry when I hear people, not angry, but a little upset when I don't go to church because there's hypocrites. Or that guy there, he did this, or that guy does that, or he cheats on his wife. Or I know that guy steals, whatever. You know, I'm not there to see them. And, being Catholic, sometimes we hear that about priests. Well, the priests have done this in the past and done that. Well, that's certain priests, yes. Just like certain teachers in schools do bad things. And, that doesn't mean that you put the whole institution down. And I'm not there, to see the priest. The priest has a job to do, but I'm there to spend time with God. So, the question is now okay, Randy, I want to work on trying to get to heaven, and being prepared. What can I do? So I think the guy that really puts it best is a gentleman named Sandy Beach. I love his speak. He's actually a he's a speaker for Alcoholics Anonymous. But somebody told me about some of his videos, and I started watching one. It's called, I think it's My God something. I'll get you the title of it in my next video. It's very good, but he talks about how you need to make a transformation from having yourself in the center of your life to having God in the center of your life. And it's not easy to do. And he actually talks about how, thousands of years ago when astronomers came up with the notion that, Earth is in the center of the universe, the sun is the center of the universe. And that concept now was all of a sudden totally different than what people were used to. So you have to, in order to make God the center, you have to talk to him. And you have to be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. And sometimes yourself, your own ego will creep back in. But you need to work on trying to build a relationship with God and trusting God and giving things to God that maybe you haven't done in the past. Letting go. Letting him take care of things. You control the things that you need to control. You do, the tasks that need to be done, but you let the worry up to him, and he will guide you. So, if your goal is to have God more involved in your life, you need to just sit down and talk to him. Jesus and God, they are the absolute number one psychiatrist, psychologist you're ever going to find. Not only that, you don't have to make a copay when you go visit them. You can make an appointment 24/7. And above all else, they're always there for you. They are always there for you. And they make house calls. You don't even have to go to their office to see them. They're always there for you. So if you're pondering it and you want to get closer to God, sit down and try and have a conversation. And work on having Jesus as your Savior. And work on all the things, forgiveness. And when the time comes, you'll be like that guy, ready to give his book report. And when they say, who wants to go next, you raise your hand. I'd like to go, I'd like to go. And you get up there and you make your case before the Lord. And, and hopefully they say, hey, you're accepted. And you go in and enjoy the mighty kingdom that heaven has to offer. God bless you. We'll talk to you again Saturday. Saturday's topic, we're going to get back a little bit more to some of the business involved in cancer. We're going to talk about, I've been asked to give some thoughts on the pharmaceutical industry. And in that, I'm also going to address some insurance stuff and some hospital things, because hospitals can be big business, but they definitely do, are an absolute necessity. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Floor 7C on Saturday. I'm looking forward to that. So until then, have a great rest of the week. God bless you, and keep us in your thoughts, and we'll keep you in our thoughts.